Wow, I'm so excited to be here for another episode on Food and Mood Talks on our series with Gabrielle, Eating from Our Empowered Selves. Today was it's such an amazing topic. We spent such a good time talking about everything that we want to share with all of you. And the today's title is Mind Body Practices to Stay Empowered when our reactive self is present. So what do we do when our reactive self is present? And how can we take care of that with amazing mind body practices, mind body spirit, I would say. So,
Mm.
welcome everybody. I am your host, Sarah Curdy Melendez, and Gabrielle, please jump in. And I'm so excited to talk about this with you.
Yes, I'm so excited, Sarah. I think this is one of the first things we connected on was because we both come from the health standpoint and nutrition standpoint. But that mind body connection was something that we were both really passionate about. And it is something that I really try to enforce the importance of when I work with people, because I think most people come to work when it comes to nutrition or getting healthier, and they don't know the importance of the mind body connection. But in reality, it is such an important topic. And the tools to strengthen the mind body connection are what allow you to create goals, create habits, create a healthy lifestyle that is honoring that true self, and also in a way that's going to be sustainable, because we don't always have these picture perfect weeks or days. A lot of times that reactive self comes, and maybe that reactive self is triggered because of a stressful work week or family emotions, or maybe it's reactive self that we've just been living with for most of our lives because of maybe, something from childhood, whatever it might be. And so, people always say, I want to break bad habits. I want to get new good habits, and I want to eat really well, and I want to be really healthy. Well, to do that, we got to strengthen the mind body connection. So, we first want to talk to you guys all about why it's important to work on the mind body connection. Because when we ignore the mind body connection and just want that quick fix, maybe that quick meal plan or exercise plan to become our healthiest, we don't want to do that mind body connection, what happens? So, it's important for you to know that. And then we're going to talk about ways we can heal the mind body connection, and how we can become more in tune with our body, more so through Sarah's going to talk about the internal family systems perspective and what it means when our parts are showing up, and then ways you can begin to do it on your own before, during, and after that reactive self is popping up. So first, why do we care about this? When we aren't paying attention to that mind body practice, which maybe many of you can relate to, like following a diet plan. You have your meal plan in front of you, your exercise plan in front of you, but you're not paying attention to that mind body connection, then you are going to be extremely disconnected to your body and what your body is trying to tell you. Our bodies are so smart, and they're constantly trying to communicate with us, which we've talked about in previous episodes, with our emotions showing up, with our impulsive self showing up. Also, it can impact us physically, like our breathing can speed up, and or maybe it really slows down and we're not breathing enough. We all know how important good breath work is. And then, your heart rate speeding up constantly when we're disconnecting our mind and body. Maybe it's our digestive system. Mind body connection, the best way to show it is when you say, oh, I have a gut feeling about something, or something stressful happens and your digestive system feels a little queasy. It's like, what's going on there? How does that happen? That's your mind body connection right there. And then also ignoring your mind body connection, you're disconnecting from your true self. And that can be detrimental on your own. And then you get stuck in those unwanted habits. Maybe that's your reactive self binge eating, or overreacting to your partner, or avoiding yourself, or numbing yourself. That's how we get stuck in that hyper or hypo arousal state, is when we are so disconnected from our mind and body.
Exactly. And now that you said like the gut feeling and then like the digestive issues,
Mhm.
when you have chronic digestive issues, how the hell are you going to listen to your gut instinct if it's always inflamed, right?
Mhm.
So definitely, like that's the whole point. And like what you're sharing about the mind body practices, this is what allows us to go back into like to naturally detox. We don't need another detox plan. It's just about naturally detoxing that needing to cling on to, that all constant
Stuff.
fear. Yeah.
That stuck energy, those stuck emotions. I know, and that's something. that again, we become, sometimes people say when they get so stuck on that autopilot, they feel like they don't have emotions anymore. But I think what's really happening, and correct me if I'm wrong, Sarah, but I think what's happening is people are so dissociated from their body that they feel numb to everything. They feel like they don't have emotions to anything anymore. And that's just because they are living on autopilot, kind of controlling every little thing they do, that they're not in touch with their body anymore.
Right. And it's like their body is sharing it in different ways. And also boredom is a feeling, and
Mhm.
that's an emotion, it's a feeling. And that was mind blowing when I realized that, because it's like whenever I would feel bored in a conversation, it's like, oh, interesting, something is coming up, it must be a part. It's not just that it's whatever, it's like there is a part of me that's pushing that away, because maybe to you it would be very interesting. So a lot of these, emotions, yeah, like also by doing a lot of different things, we can't feel them, but they're still there being manifested in different ways. It's still energy, right? Like what do you do with it? Like it's not just gonna not be present, it's being manifested differently.
Right, exactly. So it's these mind body healing practices, they really help us be able to listen to our body and not control so much. And this might be something a lot of you can relate to, is sometimes your immediate self wants like a really strict meal plan, or to count macros, or to control their perfect exercise routine. But in reality, long-term sustainable health and wellness is being able to listen to your body. What is it craving that day for food, for movement? How hungry are you? Maybe your body's telling you it needs more iron, or it needs more protein. It's like, but we can't, and that can be a really overwhelming idea to a lot of you, because you right now feel really disconnected to your mind and body, and have a lot of that maybe more controlling energy taking over, of like, well, just give me a macro plan, give me a meal plan. But eventually, slowly but surely, because this is a journey, we can get ourselves to be more connected to our body, so we can listen to our body instead of having a really detailed controlling plan. And I know,
Yeah,
Sarah, you said something about the femininity versus masculine energy coming up with controlling. Where do you think
exactly.
that presents here?
Definitely, because when we see that, so there's this video that I watched a few weeks ago on when there is control, that is a clear sign that we're out of our feminine power. And the feminine is really all about receptivity, it's about listening, it's about attracting. When we are in the masculine, which is equally as important and amazing, but we are controlling, we're not trusting, because we're trying to control something that we have in our mind that we think is the best thing, right? But when we're like thinking from our reactive self, this is just pure fear. It's fear that I'm going to be attacked. So it's all of these different narratives. So then the whole approach is going to be very different. So when we can lay back into our feminine, and I think it's about getting to know our feminine. It's not, I don't I don't think that feminine, it's like not a one size fits all.
Mhm.
It's really energy as well, right? It's like, how do I feel? Whenever I say I want to connect with my feminine, what does that feel to me right now in this moment? But knowing that control is inhibiting that
Mhm.
magic of the feminine. So I think that's really important, because when we're in our feminine, then we can step more into our empowered selves, because we're not trying to control things around us.
So letting go of some control is okay, and it's good. I think sometimes we have a hard time letting go of controlling every little thing, but knowing that that is going to allow you to tap more into that feminine side, tap more into that empowered self. And like you said, it's not that you don't want any of that masculine energy. It's just that sometimes we have to let the feminine energy step in a little bit more than we're used to.
I would say it's the opposite. I'd say we need to live in our feminine energy, and then the masculine is the one that's like getting things done. But like
Okay.
if you look at cats or anything in nature, like they're sleeping most of the time, but then when they're there. So this is why it's like we need to live without trying to control things. Well, this is my philosophy. And then when we need to have discipline or control something, or we're going to be fully present, because we're not constantly on the stress response of like needing to
Constantly.
control life.
Mhm. Absolutely. All right. Well, what we'll do is we're going to talk about, because again, this might be an overwhelming topic to you. You're like, no, I need control. I need structure to reach my goals. So how do we strengthen that mind body connection? We're going to talk about what we even mean by that. We have this vagus nerve that connects our mind to our body. So it connects to our digestive tract. It connects to our heart. It connects to our lungs. And that we can do some vagus nerve work. We can do some we're going to talk about our window of tolerance and what we mean by that, and these different healing practices that allow you to feel grounded and prevent you from feeling like you continuously and constantly fall into that reactive self, whether that's through hyper arousal, for example, feeling constantly anxious or angry or out of control, or the hypo arousal. Maybe that's feeling emotional numbness, exhaustion, depression. So how can we stay in the middle and find balance here? And Sarah and I loved this graph that I'm going to show just to give you a better idea of what we're referring to when we talk about the window of tolerance. So window of tolerance. And Sarah, I'm going to let you talk a little bit about this graph and what it's telling us, and then we'll dive into the different healing practices.
Yeah, sure. So I love the term the window of tolerance because that is where we can really feel like this is where our like intuitively intelligent self lies. When we're going into hyper arousal or hypo arousal, like this is the abnormal state of increased responsiveness. So like the reactive self, this is like give it fuel, right? Like it's about these urges, these cravings, and like stress, like wanting to fight, angry, out of control, feeling really anxious that you need to run away. So these signs like can show you that we're obviously in a place where it just doesn't, it feels like an ulcer, you know? Like when we have an ulcer, it's like there's something going on here, like that inner volcano. And then there are other times where, okay, we feel like a bit dysregulated. We're, I don't know, like here, maybe they're like cursing a little bit, feel a little bit out of control, like trying to control, maybe also trying to control would be in this part under the hyper arousal. It's already part of dysregulation, but it's not too much. So this is just a sign. And then when we go into that window of tolerance, this is when we're balanced and in a calm state of mind, feeling relaxed and in control, but not needing to control, just feeling like things are good internally. The internal environment is healthy, able to function most effectively. So we're sharpest, we're smart, we're not needing to like change from project to project and can take on any challenge that life throws at us. Like this is really where we're receptive to taking action from a very intuitive and empowered place. And so, yeah, then Gabrielle is going to talk about different practices that we could do. And then the hypoarousal is the opposite of the ulcer. That's where we completely freeze and we might need to completely shut down if we want to hide from the world. It's decreased responsiveness. We could be very hazy and like just not present. Emotional numbness, exhaustion, depression, may experience the body like shutting down. And some ways that we can know that we're going into hyperarousal is like feeling overwhelmed. Our bodies might start shutting down, maybe losing track of time, don't feel comfortable, but you're not out of control yet. So we can notice these different scenarios and see how they're showing up in our body, but we need to listen to the language of the body. That's the most important thing.
And like you said, it's about when life throws something at us, how do we better stay in that window of tolerance so we don't constantly find ourselves falling into the hyper or hypoarousal states? And when relating it to health and fitness and food, ways you can think of this is like binge eating or over controlling or maybe under eating and not eating, punishing our bodies. Or maybe hypoarousal could be, I don't want to move my body all week, I want to lay in my bed all week. So these are these patterns that maybe we keep finding ourselves falling into. So how, when life throws stressors at us, whether it's stressors from work, from family, from whatever it might be, how do we better stay in that window of tolerance? And that's where it comes in, of expanding that window of tolerance so that we can feel more grounded and connected to that empowered self when life throws all these crazy things at us, so we don't constantly fall back into those states of hyper or hypoarousal, which dysregulated either way. And it's okay when you do fall into these states. But like Sarah said, it's just noticing it. And then what we're going to talk about in a little bit, how we can navigate what our body's telling us. But how do we widen that window of tolerance first? Healing practices, mind body healing practices. That can be through breath work. That can be because when we slow down our breath, we're slowing down our nervous system, which then slows down our heart rate and it regulates our digestive system. So breath work can be so empowering. Maybe that's not what you want to do. Maybe something like healing with play, through creativity, through art, through music, through dancing, through singing. All of this is also expanding your window to tolerance. Maybe for some people, they're going to really enjoy yoga or stretching. Moving your body is going to also expand your window to stress tolerance. Sleeping really well is something really simple. Some people do things like cold therapy, so cold plunges, widening their window of tolerance. For some people, that's pushing themselves physically, so going a little bit extra on their workout or their run because they want to push themselves to widen that window of tolerance. So as I'm showing you, there's so many different ways we can widen that window of tolerance. And it could be something as simple, Sarah, you're talking about that commitment mantra. I love that because anybody can do that. Can you talk to us a little bit about that one?
Yes, and I'm glad that this image is still here because I believe that when we make the commitment to stay in our window of tolerance, our organism really will send energy for that, right? And again, like we can mix in the Enneagram philosophy with this as well. It's like if our ego is constantly looking for stress, right? Or for checking out in some way, like these are our blind spots, then what we most need is to make that commitment that even when like these parts get scared, our intention is to drive our attention back to us. So like U-turning, coming back to us. What do our parts need right now? With the commitment of I am this strong like mother to myself. And like that's another thing about learning more how to be with our femininity, because we're also getting to know the mother archetype within ourselves. So it's seeing this reactive self. When the baby cries, you cannot just go to another room and leave the baby there to cry until it's done. Like that, there is a need there. If that happens, which probably does a lot, it's like, yeah, that baby is gonna, have this kind of impression right now of like, I cry and I cry until I sleep, right? So it's about making that commitment of staying present with our parts, whatever a part needs. And we don't need to figure this out. So that's why, like, this is the philosophy behind the commitment mantra for me. It's like, I choose to spend my energy in choosing peace. So my commitment mantra is I choose inner peace. So whenever something else happens that it might sound really really trivial to somebody else, but for me, based on my Enneagram type, based on my history and my parts, like that could be something extremely triggering, leading me directly to hyper arousal. So just noticing, okay, this is kind of where my parts need to go right now, or they feel they need to go, but choosing inner peace for me means I am taking care of myself no matter what, even if that person made me feel extremely bad and I wanna fight with them or I wanna hurt them or whatever. It's like, no, I'm U-turning because this is a sign and this is an assignment that I need to be with. And so that's why the commitment mantra is super important for me. It's just kind of behind everything. And then we get to deal with like life stuff, right? You have the practical stuff what you can do, but it's always about, for me, having meaning into why this is showing up, right? Like it's not irrelevant. It's always relevant.
And that's a way to ground yourself in the moment too, of like when you get triggered and you maybe fall into that hypoarousal, or you're about to. So like you're about to react. That commitment mantra can ground you in that moment, right? And allow you to have grace for yourself, see what's showing up, and then do that digestive work after of like, what's coming up? How can I meet my emotional, spiritual needs right now? I love that. And so a big thing that comes up, and Sarah, I want to hear your perspective on this, is I hear this a lot from clients where they do the breath work, right? They do the meditation, they do these activities that expand their window of tolerance. And and they feel really uncomfortable. Maybe a lot of anxiety comes up when they're in their yoga practice. Maybe their gut is acting up when they show up to a social situation. They start to get a stomach ache. What does this mean in the somatic IFS perspective? How can we, and you were just touching upon it a little bit there, but like how do we pause and connect to these parts of ourselves? And what can they be telling us?
Totally. So I think one of the most important things to notice is when we're getting a bit dysregulated, and the Enneagram can really help with that because it's showing us like what are our triggers and what tends to show up. So then it's just about being on the lookout, having that radar for when are my parts not feeling okay? How does that show up in my body? And this is, I think, a lifelong exploration, right? Because we're like constantly changing and developing, but it's about having that radar of like, how is my body feeling? How am I doing? How is my mind? Like, what's my inner landscape like right now? And unblending. So when we're able to notice that our reactive self is taking the lead here, I picture the reactive self as kind of all these young parts of me that are really hurt and they're like driving the the horses, and it's like, no, I'd rather very much take my empowered self that has like the power of whatever is necessary to take control of the situation and not just kind of let the children play and fuck shit up. It's like, it's really about taking care and taking ownership. So commitment, staying in that. And then when things get really hard, it's seeing like, oh, these are the obstacles that are showing up. And I have my commitment mantra that I'm going back to. And also I'm learning how to navigate these waters. I'm learning how to surf, right? Like I'm not avoiding these urges. I'm not avoiding these cravings or the stomach ache. It's showing up. Yes, I see this as an obstacle. And just a little side note. So we have like the ones, right? Like when things are really bad and we're completely dysregulated, sometimes that feels like we need like a spiritual hospital, right? Or like an emotional hospital. And other times we have that training ground where it's like we're really getting to know ourselves. So when things feel completely out of control, if you have a lot of pain, like stomach, and it's a pattern and, constant digestive issues, the most important thing is that you tell yourself we're on our way. Like this is something that's important to me, because I think that many of us tend to like forget about our digestive issues as being something important or big or like, it really can debilitate the way that we show up in life. So it's really about committing to, I'm on this journey and we're looking at what's happening digestively. And I also know that this could be a part of me showing up right now. It could be an anxious part. So this somatic internal family systems therapy book is really good. It shows us how the internal family systems model is also equally as present with our somatics and our parts and how they show up physically. So it could be a stomach ache, it could be a backache, it could be a migraine. So all of these things are messages that something is not okay and our reactive self is sort of showing up. So there is that part of understanding that everything is showing up for a reason. And then there's also the part where we do our practices and breathing through them. And yeah, I don't know if that answers the question. That's like the more philosophical, but it's very valid, right? Like, what do you do in the time when it's happening? It's a
Right.
whole.
Because just like anything, there's like the before work you can do, the during work you can do, and the after work you can do. And that navigating these waters, like Sarah was saying, and learning to surf, that doesn't happen overnight. This takes a lot of time and practice, and it is a lifelong journey. It is not something that you are going to be able to do, and then all of a sudden you have no reactive versions of yourself. You're always going to have reactive versions of yourself. So it's learning how to navigate the waters for the rest of your life and learning how to have fun riding those waves,
Exactly.
and have grace for yourself when you fall off that surfboard and you have to get back up time and time again, because that's how life works. And so just like and these, we talked about this in previous episodes too, like that before, during, and after approach of like before, yeah, we could do the mind body healing work. Maybe that's yoga, maybe that's exercise, maybe that's meditation, maybe that's breath work, whatever that is that floats your boat. And then there's going to be the during. So that's going to be like the commitment mantra, like Sarah was saying, and noticing you falling into those reactive moments, or those reactive versions of yourself, grounding yourself in the moment, looking internally. And then there's the after work of like, okay, this is what happened. How can I digest this situation? How can I better get to know myself? How can I better stick that wave the next time I go to ride it? And feel stronger, feel more empowered the next run.
Right, because these questions are shining the light onto what's really important. How can I learn how to surf better? Right?
Mhm.
That's the important thing. It's not about, okay, how can I prevent this wave from coming and touching
Yes.
me, person hitting
Yes.
me? It's like that is living literally like death, you know?
Mhm.
But when we're learning how to surf, when we fall, we're not going to be like, oh my God, yes, like this wait, I fell off the surfboard for a second.
We all do.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, okay, so this is the interest is in learning what happened there, but actually learning, not making a drama for falling, because that is
Mhm.
another way we check out. And that's another way we stop learning how to surf.
Mhm.
So when we commit to really showing up to this life and showing up for ourselves, because that is where the gold is. Why would you want to keep on like an eternal life of falling from a surfboard and getting on? The most important part is learning how to play
Learning.
with it, right?
Learning. Yep.
Flowing with it,
Yep.
the flow state for the process, not
Mhm.
for the results. It's the flow state for the game process.
And I think that's the biggest difference between like someone following a one size fits all diet health plan versus taking the approach that we take, which is that sustainable mind body approach, where the one size fits all approach that they take is you falling off the surfboard, just getting back on, falling off, getting back off, avoiding the waves, getting back on, falling off, getting back on. While the sustainable mind body approach is learning how you can surf better, how you can navigate the waters better, and time and repetition of working on it, getting to know your body better, what's working well, what's not, what is coming up, and how can I better handle it the next time. And then being able to stay in that state of the window of tolerance that we were talking about, more so than you stay in the states of the hypoarousal, that dysregulated self.
Yeah.
Oh, well, another amazing conversation, Sarah. I just love being able to get your perspective and us coming together on these topics, because it is something we all deal with and it's something we all face, but we have no idea how to navigate it. And these conversations help me, and I and I know it's helping every person that listens to these conversations, because it's uncomfortable to talk about these things, but the most important thing is to know you're not alone. We're all trying to learn how to surf better, and we're all in this together.
Wow, I really want to go surf now. Like I don't know how to surf, but I'm gonna learn.
I'm with you. Let's do it.
And in the meantime, we all surf in these food and mood talks because we're surfing the ocean of our emotions and talking about these things. It's so juicy, it's so fun, and I'm just so grateful. And I we will see each other on the next episode on eating from our empowered selves. Thank you everyone watching, and thank you so much, Gabrielle.
Thank you all. Thank you, Sarah, and we'll see you next time.